Business news for you now. Kate Moody is with us in the studio. And Kate, we're going to talk about the French pension reforms. The government says it is still going ahead, even though it did make quite a big concession over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Those talks with the unions are set to continue, as indeed are the strikes themselves. Monday is the 40th day of interrupted transport service in the Paris area. Lawyers are also on strike around the country. A number of trials have been delayed. Now, the head of France's largest union has welcomed this weekend's announcement by Prime Minister Edouard Philippe that he would abandon the so-called pivot age, which would have raised from 62 to 64 the age at which full retirement benefits can be collected. But the CFDT has warned that it is far from the end of the story. Meanwhile, more hardline unions say the concession is nothing but a smokescreen, and they're calling for strikes and demonstrations to continue in the days and weeks to come. Well, Germany's pension system is increasingly in the spotlight as well. New figures show that nearly 1 in 5 German retirees are at risk of falling under the poverty line. The figure in France is closer to 7%. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has called for an overhaul of the German system, saying it's both too expensive to keep going and not enough to support an aging population. Sam Bradpeace has more.
For decades, Germany was seen as an economic powerhouse, a model for growth, efficiency and fiscal responsibility. But the growing number of pensioners left counting their pennies paints another picture. The number of seniors at risk of poverty has risen by a third since 2010. That means more than 3 million people, nearly a fifth of Germany's pensioner population, are living on less than 13,600 euros per year. Part of the problem lies in the country's pension system. Ursula worked for 46 years as an architect. Now, in her 80s, she gets 833 euros per month.
I was shocked when I saw this pitiful amount. After so many years of working and having raised 3 children, I couldn't believe it.
Germany has a pay-as-you-go pension system tied to earnings, with combined payments coming from the state, employers and individuals. This leaves low-paid workers and the self-employed particularly disadvantaged.
Having hobbies or going on holiday, it's simply impossible.
It is shameful in a rich country like Germany.
In light of the crisis, the government has struck a deal to guarantee a basic pension for low-income workers. The retirement age is set to increase to 67 by 2031, but the central bank has warned that an increase to 69 will be required to take pressure off a system that could crack under an ageing population.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. We saw a fairly flat close for the major European indices. Investors around the world keeping an eye on geopolitical developments. And of course, that long-awaited signing of the US-China trade deal, which is due on Wednesday. The CAC 40 and Frankfurt DAX both closing slightly below the flat line there. The Dow Jones has risen at least 100 points there. Wall Street on the rise as Bloomberg reports that the US will be removing China from a list of currency-manipulating countries just a few days ahead of that signing of that trade agreement. The S&P 500 has hit a new record high, and the Nasdaq is up about 0.75 of a percentage point this hour. The UK economy shrank in November, raising further concerns about its future as the January 31st Brexit deadline approaches. New data from the Office for National Statistics showed a sharper than expected 0.3% contraction in November. Figures for the 2 previous months were revised slightly upwards for 0.1% growth over that 3-month period. Drops in manufacturing and services output dragged down the economy still further. Well, business uncertainty was eased slightly by the Conservative Party's decisive victory in elections in December, ensuring both their parliamentary majority and the date of the UK's exit from the EU. The weak economic outlook has now raised speculation that the Bank of England could further cut interest rates, with 3 of the committee's 9 policymakers saying they'll support the move at their next meeting at the end of the month. That's put pressure on the pound, sliding below $1.30 and under €1.17. Boeing's new chief executive has taken over the troubled aviation giant this Monday. David Calhoun said that he has confidence in the future of the aviation giant, apparently clear that he will be able to steer it through to a brighter future as Boeing struggles to regain its footing after a series of scandals. Kemi Nedlek has the story.
Boeing is betting on Chairman David Calhoun to get them out of its ongoing crisis. At 63, he's a veteran, having spent 10 years on the board of Boeing and over 20 years at American engineering conglomerate General Electric. He's viewed by many as a safe pair of hands. Announcing his appointment in December, Boeing said that a change in leadership was necessary to restore confidence in the company. Calhoun has got his work cut out for him. He'll have to get the beleaguered 737 MAX back in the air, foster better ties with regulators who've lost trust in the company, and detoxify the brand. After 2 air disasters left 346 people dead. Investigators in both crashes pointed the finger at Boeing's anti-stall mechanism, MCAS. The aviation giant had insisted pilots did not need expensive flight simulation training to use MCAS. It now says they do. Just last week, as part of a pledge to transparency, Boeing handed over hundreds of emails to the FAA, the US air regulator, including messages that cast an unflattering light on the company, with 2 Boeing employees saying 8 months before the first crash that they would not put their families on a 737 MAX plane. Boeing is the largest exporter in the US. It has a staggering 137,000 employees across all 50 states, and many more suppliers and airlines have close ties to the firm. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said on Sunday that the crisis could slow US growth in 2020 by as much as half a percentage point.
So new leadership at Boeing, Laura. Dennis Muilenburg, meanwhile, leaving with $62 million in compensation and pension benefits. That's according to a new filing today.
That's not bad, is it? Nothing to be sniffed at. All right, Kate, thank you very much indeed. Kate Moody there.